Hello all and welcome back. I hope you're doing really well. I thank you again for the love and support on the most recent video. If you guys haven't seen that one, I urge you to check it out. Lots of great information in that. However, today again is going to be a huge update for Hedera and the markets at large. Hedera/HBAR appears to be going through the next stage of its adoption curve as we're seeing increased amounts of activity on chain around NFTs, new token launches, projects, etc. You name it, it's all currently happening on Hedera. I think mass adoption is really starting to take hold. We will see this continue throughout the coming weeks and months, particularly at the moment as we're in a bear market. Things are looking very, very good. Let's do a quick macro overview and then we'll dive straight into all of the Hedera related news. So on the crypto fear and greed index, we can see we are still in an extreme fear zone. We're actually at the lowest point we've been for a couple of weeks and months at this point, at a 20. And of course, typically during these really sort of bear market kind of cycles where we hit these extreme fear figures from this sentiment indicator, it's normally a good time to average into the positions if you're in this for the long term. Of course, there will be plenty of noise over the short term, as we'd seen previously in June, where we bottomed out sub 10 on this particular metric when majority of the crypto space wasn't performing very well. And again, at the moment, we're seeing Bitcoin below $20,000, sort of fighting to hold that level, and majority of the altcoins are following. However, I did want to quickly look at the crypto bubbles. We can see at the moment, Hedera, for example, is at 6 cents. This is a great buying opportunity for me personally, and I'm slowly just adding to that position to build it for the future. I see a ton of potential in Hedera, and we'll be covering a lot of the reasons and developments that we have at the moment building on top of Hedera that is going to really drive that during the next bull market. This is one of the big things about Hedera Hashgraph that I truly love, is that this development cycle is continuing throughout this sort of bear market, and they are taking this opportunity to build, day over day. The strength is increasing within the ecosystem and the community, and then hopefully we will reap the rewards of that during the next bull market, where hopefully we see greater levels of adoption. I mean, that being said, there is tons of adoption happening at the moment, which I will obviously be covering. Some other projects as well. Quant, I can't see it at the moment, but Quant is at a great figure at the moment to be purchasing. There it is, just looking for it. $94. I've said before, sub $100 for me for Quant is a great buying opportunity and something that I like to average into. We could come a lot lower than this. Where are we at the moment? So around $94 at the moment. This could head lower. We could see it bottom out in the sort of 50s or $50 range potentially if Bitcoin takes a dump even further. However, as I've said before, I just average into these positions. I'm not trying to time the bottom or time the top in terms of my buys and sells. I just average in on a weekly basis in order to build those positions for the long term. Other projects as well, obviously you guys know about, that I talk about frequently. Things like Chainlink, great buying opportunity. Stellar XLM, I always like to hold a small portion of that in the eventuality that it does well in the future. Algorand is another great layer one solution as well, and plenty of other projects that I'm slowly averaging into, but none more so than HBAR at the moment. The macro news across the board, though, still looking incredibly bearish. Goldman Sachs is predicting the US housing market downturn will worsen in 2023. And of course, the Fed monetary policy is still incredibly hawkish to fight off that inflation. However, it's not just the United States. As we've said before, this is a global macro sort of recession that's taking place. 60% of British factory companies are at the risk of bankruptcy, according to Bloomberg, which is unsurprising due to the severe levels of input costs. The input levels of inflation are surging, and of course that is rattling through the markets at the moment. Germany as well is now agreeing to spend 65 billion on an inflation relief package. So throughout Europe, this is also similar. So we've got sort of the UK, Europe, the United States and Asia are suffering as a result of coming out of that quantitative easing we saw throughout 2020, 2021, and even early 22. Anyway, let's get into this HBAR news because there is an absolute ton of it, and hopefully you guys are going to enjoy this. So great tweet here from LED, just posting what was happening on Twitter over the last couple of days. We had HBAR trending again, but with the most significant level of volume we'd seen previously on the socials. So 18.3 thousand tweets were being sent out on the 3rd of September. And of course, that trend is continuing as well. We can see HeadStarter here retweeting something from Lunar Crush, the Hedera ecosystem's bubbling excitement has now reached a new all-time high. When the macro sentiment turns, the world will notice. Testament to the hard work put forth by the likes of the Hbar Foundation, the Hedera NFT movement, that Hedera Heatwave, of course, HashPack app are continually developing as well and driving forward that adoption with some news we'll cover soon. Swirls Labs, you've got SaucerSwap, STADER, Hedera, of course, and many other projects within the space. And if we look at this tweet from Lunar Crush, which is obviously the social contributor and sort of social scores for the different cryptocurrency projects, we can see we hit 1,988 social contributions as an all-time high. And of course, this is a great move forward, and hopefully we'll see this continue. Jumping across then to something slightly different, let's take a quick look at STADER Hedera. So they have released their new schedule for the rewards throughout September, and I know many of you guys were waiting to see this information. Would the rewards continue at an elevated rate, or would they now finally begin to taper off? A lot of us were expecting the rewards to taper off at the end of July. We saw increased rewards throughout August. And again, it looks like we'll be seeing increased rewards throughout September to the beginning of October. And hopefully maybe even throughout October, we'll see higher emission rates. So we see here multiple reasons to stake with STADER, rewards being one of them. In case you haven't minted HBARX, start your journey here on Hedera.STADER Of course, I have a dedicated video showing you guys how to mint those HBARX tokens in order to receive this APY, which is effectively staking itself with a liquid token. What we can see here though is the start date from the 5th of September to the 11th. We have an emission rate of 475,000, which is 25,000 less than what we're currently seeing, which is 500,000, of course. 12th to the 18th, 450, and then so on and so forth through to the 2nd of October, reducing every week by 25,000 HBAR via the emission rate. So we should still see rewards in the sort of middle 20% APYs, which is still a great place to be holding that HBAR to earn that additional yield over something maybe like SaucerSwap, which has, of course, much higher returns, but you've got things like impermanent loss. And again, there's a dedicated video on the channel talking about impermanent loss, liquidity providing, how to earn that additional APY, and also some strategies to take advantage of using the HBARX token, earn those rewards, as well as providing liquidity with them, and then even farming those tokens so you get 3 times the amount of rewards. But of course, there's some additional risk. We can see here, you guys can check at any given point as well what the current staking rewards are. The _per_epoch, which is every 24 hours, which is of course distributed to all HBARX stakers. And we can see at the moment 500,000 HBAR. And then as we saw, as of tomorrow, that will reduce to 475,000 HBAR. 27% APY currently, and of course that will continue to fall throughout September as they reduce those emission rewards. Likely though, we'll still see APYs above 20% as we head into October, providing things like the TVL doesn't change too much. Interesting article as well they wrote up here that I wanted to quickly run through. So the STADER X SaucerSwap, the APY explained. So SaucerSwap is live and gives HBARX holders the opportunity to maximize their returns. Here are some ways of achieving those maximized yields. So if you haven't yet staked HBAR, earning staking rewards by staking with STADER. So staking rewards first come, first serve. When you stake your HBAR with STADER, you of course earn that 27 APY we just saw as of the current date. The staking rewards in the form of reward-bearing liquid HBARX tokens. The rate obviously continues to increase as rewards get accumulated over time. If you have staked HBAR already and are holding HBARX, you can earn further rewards by starting with providing liquidity on the HBARX based pools on SaucerSwap. Of course, again, there's that dedicated tutorial that I have. And how this works is obviously you get things like swap fees. So every time a transaction is processed on SaucerSwap, a small portion of that transaction is charged to the user in form of a swap fee for utilizing the platform. So the incentive for liquidity provision arises in the part from the 0.3% swap fee on SaucerSwap. So 5/6 or 0.25% of this is aggregated and distributed back to liquidity providers pro rata based on the amount of LP tokens they hold, i.e. the more liquidity you provide, a greater share of that swap fee that you guys will receive for providing that liquidity. You of course then also get the farming rewards as well. So users can leverage yield farming on SaucerSwap by staking their LP tokens in crop circles. Each crop circle on the protocol corresponds to a liquidity pool and receives a weight of source emissions from the farm smart contract. The emissions rate is constant and 800 million source will be released over a 3-year period. So you provide liquidity, you receive your liquidity pool tokens, you then earn part of the swap fees for holding those tokens, but you can then go and stake those LP tokens inside a crop circle to earn even more. So you've got the HBARX emissions that you're receiving, you've got the liquidity pool emissions you are receiving, and then you've got the farm emissions you're receiving. So you're getting 3 different types of rewards from utilizing and leveraging the different features of these platforms with those HBARX tokens. In the future as well, single-sided staking will be coming around. So this requires only one type of token. By staking Source in the Infinity pool, a user immediately receives Saucer tokens as a receipt of the liquidity they provided. The Infinity pool then automatically compounds via Source buybacks. Similar to STADER, the ratio of Source to Saucer is constantly increasing. Thus, Saucer is perpetually increasing in value to Source. There is no risk of impermanent loss within single stake pools. And then of course you've got community pools as well with the various different tokens that are being launched. You compare those together. And again, I urge you to check out that dedicated video. It's around sort of 20 minutes long, but it goes into depth about what is happening behind the scenes, how to navigate the website and how to provide liquidity, etc. Anyway, let's jump across, and there's also some further news about CBDCs. Again, dedicated video recently talking about the United States with MTech and Hedera potentially being involved, or is involved, I should say, in the infrastructure behind the scenes in preliminary testing for a CBDC in the United States. However, we're seeing here the digital RUPEE is something that is currently taking off, and there's clearly or potentially some involvement with Hedera. I'll try and leave that article linked down in the description. It doesn't talk about Hedera's involvement per se, but it just talks about CBDCs in more depth. However, here we can see one of the quotes from the Hedera Twitter account saying, for the national blockchain, it suggested using an enterprise blockchain or private version of Ethereum or Hedera Hashgraph, where government departments and industry associations can run the validator nodes. And you can read more in the article by Ledger Insights. So it says here that they are touting with the idea for this RUPEE CBDC, the Indian RUPEE, either being built on top of a private version of Ethereum or Hedera. Hopefully they choose Hedera. It would seem almost illogical to choose Ethereum based on the sort of lack of robustness or scalability in comparison to Hedera Hashgraph, which is obviously tried and tested in terms of the volume of different transactions, along with fees and the energy efficiency being a massive one. Even when Ethereum transfers across to proof of stake in the middle of September, it still will be nowhere near as energy efficient, almost carbon negative in comparison to obviously what Hedera Hashgraph can achieve. Looking across again, then we can see further adoption across the ecosystem. So UPHOLD is now supporting Hbar withdrawals, and you can obviously buy Hbar directly on the UPHOLD. This is another major off-ramp that's being available. So we've got the banks are off-ramp inside HashPack, but now you've obviously got the UPHOLD off-ramp. Other centralized exchanges as well, large ones such as Coinbase, sorry, not Coinbase, of course, the token's not available, that's in their roadmap. Binance has the ability for you to obviously set up an account, buy and transfer Hbar, and then if you wanted to, you can use that as an off-ramp to get the money back into a private account, your bank account, whatever it may be, PayPal, whatever. But seeing UPHOLD do this as well, again, still has a large user base, not at the sheer scale of what Binance has, but of course, every little helps when it comes to mass amounts of adoption. And of course, nothing better than that than HashPack's recent Android app release has just gone live. I've actually been testing the app over on my personal device, and it works absolutely flawlessly. So many of you mobile users now will have the ability to experience HashPack app similarly to how desktop users experience it with the Chrome extension. So they're excited to announce the HashPack public beta for Android is now live. All of your favorite wallet features, including managing your crypto, NFTs, staking, and connecting to dApps, are accessible when you're on the move via your HashPack app. And of course, if you created a wallet using the web client or the Chrome extension on a desktop or laptop, you can of course use your seed phrase or your private key. Make sure you do not share those with anyone because they can gain access to your wallet, but you can use those seed phrases for yourself to then set your wallet up on your mobile device as well. So you have access on not only your mobile device, but you also have access on your desktop device at the same time. So you can flick between them depending on whether you're sort of at home or on the move, as they so say. Of course, make sure you never share that seed phrase or private key with anyone whatsoever. They should be written down in a place on a piece of paper underneath your mattress where no one's going to be able to get hold of those. Also as well, looking at some of the metrics from Dragonglass, retweeted out by 𝗟𝗜𝗡𝗏, the Hedera ecosystem is gaining even further traction. So we saw those social the social score from Lunar Crush in terms of the number of interactions on social media. But what we can also see is that 40,000 accounts were created last week, with 81,000 plus in the month. Will we hit 160,000 new accounts next month? So nice spike of account creation towards the end of the month. And of course, throughout the month was very, very good, 255% up. And then the account creation as well over time, we can see doing very well over the monthly side. That last sort of week or so of August performing incredibly well in comparison to what we'd seen previously. And of course, again, lots of this is just sort of spurring throughout the ecosystem. You've got LG developing, many other partners coming into the space. People are starting to create Hedera accounts and get involved with what's actually happening on chain. And we can see that as well through some of these different token launches. You can see HashBurglar here is obviously part of the SaucerSwap dev team. Despite the market being down, of course, we're in a bear market. HTS or Hedera token service season is taking off. And this is the number of swap events per day. So with the number of days since launch, so not even 30 days since launch, and we're seeing roughly 16,000 sort of transactions or swap events occurring per day on SaucerSwap Labs. And of course, you can see this trajectory is really starting to gain something. I mean, that's what, 26, 27, 28. So over sort of 3 to 4 days, we've gone from roughly under 4,000 transactions all the way up to 16,000 transactions. So a 4 times increase over that period. And this is just going to continue as we see more and more projects rolling out across the space, from NFTs, but also tokens, which I'll be covering in a second. Staying on the theme of decentralized exchanges or DEXs, HBAR as well appears to be ramping up. So while Hbar Security is auditing the DEX, they're keeping on with the building. Here's a sneak peek of our NFT marketplace in progression. This is of course some mock data, and of course HBAR themselves do have a round 2 sort of initial token offering that you guys can participate in by going to the website. Again, search back on the videos on my channel where I show you guys how to pick up some of these HBAR tokens directly from their website. And of course, you can actually buy them directly from within SaucerSwap themselves from other users. What we can see here though is them featuring or displaying some of the features that will be available on the HBAR decentralized exchange when it goes live. And of course, these guys differing from SaucerSwap, which uses smart contracts in order to process transactions, they are using a mixture of the native Hedera services, the Hedera token services, and the consensus services in order to provide these transactions. And of course, you can see here you've got inbuilt NFT features where you can create and sell your different NFTs, similar to what Zoo's marketplace kind of looks like with the secondary market, but also bringing in those features from HashAxis where you can create them yourself and then sell them. Flicking across, you can see all the different collection details. You can obviously order and filter them. We pause it here as well. So you've got the marketplaces, the collections, you've got auctions as well. You can see what NFTs have sold, stats, you have your own profile. We can also see their DAO features above here over on HSUITE. So obviously if you're holding those HSUITE tokens, you can vote on future proposals, similar to the source token, how that will be utilized in the future on SaucerSwap. You've got multi-signatory transactions, which you can see is coming soon. Token Builder, which looks very interesting. They've got their launch pad, and then of course they've got their exchange on top of that. So they're going through the different stats here for the NFT features. Looks really great with tons of different features, and hopefully we will see some updates from them regarding their audit from Hbar Security. Of course, lots of these different projects are ensuring that the security is paramount, and of course it really does need to be. The last DEX I wanted to quickly look at as well is HELISWAP. Less updates at the moment, but of course they're going through different audit phases as well. And the reason these guys differ from HBAR and SaucerSwap is they are the first DEX on Hedera network that will be supporting swaps natively between HTS and ERC20 tokens as well as HBAR. So that means you'll be able to swap directly from, say, your source tokens or your HELISWAP or HBAR tokens straight into a token on the Ethereum chain. And this again is going to be a massive, massive bridge between Hedera and the Ethereum ecosystem, which enables even more of that volume to traverse across from the sluggish, slow Ethereum chains to the Hedera ecosystem. And again, we've seen this before with things like NFTs making their way from Hedera, being minted on Hedera because it is so cheap, and then being bridged across to Ethereum. We can see a lot of these assets then being bridged across back to Hedera as the ecosystem gains traction. And this exchange cannot be understated for the sort of additional users and equity that it will bring to Hedera. Seriously bullish stuff, and I'll be keeping a close eye on that. Again, going further into what's happening in Hedera, tons of different giveaways at the moment as we're seeing everything ramp up. So we can see SaucerSwap are giving away 50,000 HBAR. Again, I urge you guys to sort of go on Twitter, go through this sort of different stuff and have a look for yourselves. Follow me on Twitter. I follow a lot of these accounts and retweet them so the community has an opportunity to get involved with them. And again, similarly for any of the projects, you can go through my follow list and sort of view these projects that I'm following and doing research on myself so that you guys can do your own research. It's probably quite a good starting point. And I retweet a lot of that information. We see here though, really simple entry, pretty standard for cryptocurrencies on Twitter, following their obviously Twitter account, making a swap on SaucerSwap Labs, retweet, like, and tag one friend and post the transaction in the description for you in the comments so that you're eligible in the future. I think this is 10 winners of 5,000 HBAR each. So really nice way to get involved in the ecosystem. I think I covered the lucky token airdrop in a previous video. However, we can now see that their website is live. There's no features just yet, but of course this is casino based. So make sure you're following your local sort of regulations in terms of legality, etc. This is obviously gambling of some kind. Well, it is gambling at the end of the day. But again, this could prove really interesting for the Hedera ecosystem in terms of the volume of transactions being processed on Hedera Hashgraph. And again, is another stress test of potentially in the future us seeing that step function take place on the network. If you've got thousands of different transactions happening in a short period of time based on people betting or processing different forms of gambling, could be very interesting indeed for fees and staking in the future. More giveaways as well. We can see Dropper here, so Dropper NFT, they're giving away 2,000 HBAR, and you guys again can enter really simply by liking, following, retweeting, and tag 3 friends. I urge you all, if you don't actually use Twitter yet, to really do get involved with the Hedera community over on Twitter. There's tons of stuff going on, and it's a great way to learn about things first. Now, towards the end of the video now, but I wanted to quickly cover what's happening with these Hedera token service projects. Now, any of you that have been around in crypto for a while, 2020, 2021, and were involved in the Binance Smart Chain ecosystem when that was taking off, will know all about these different projects that will pop up across the board as an ecosystem really starts to take off. And we're now seeing that happen on Hedera. Now, this is a double-edged sword in terms of what happens. It's really good for growth of the community and the chain itself, or the DLT. We'll see a lot of users and capital enter the markets. Tokens will go parabolic, and there'll be tons of new projects releasing. The flip side, the double-edged side of the blade, is that unfortunately, a vast majority of these will be sort of get-rich-quick schemes for the creators. There will be rug pulls where people will invest their money and they will lose it all as majority of scams take hold. So you're going to be seeing tons of these different projects popping up all across the scene. This Milk token, I'm just doing a bit more research on them at the moment. They have integrated themselves into SaucerSwap. Interestingly though, they give 1% back to 𝗥𝗘𝗡𝗦𝗥 NFT holders. So those of you that purchase those NFTs as part of SaucerSwap's early rounds for the access to get some of those airdrop tokens, if you still hold those, 1% of the tokens will be distributed to those 𝗥𝗘𝗡𝗦𝗥 NFT holders. If you hold some of those tokens, this is a burn and mint mechanism, or a burn mechanism, where they have a really high volume of tokens, and then every time a transaction is processed, a percentage of those gets burnt away. Very common on the Binance Smart Chain. So you can see there, 3% tax, 1% of that gets burnt. So if you process a transaction with Milk tokens, you will immediately lose 3%, 1% gets burnt, 1% gets distributed to 𝗥𝗘𝗡𝗦𝗥 NFT holders, and 1% goes back to the milkman, which in their case is some kind of sort of treasury where they can use those tokens in the future for things like marketing. Again, loads of these different projects popping up. Be very cautious with the different projects you get involved in. Be cautious with the tokens on SaucerSwap. Make sure you've done your own research and there's a bit of a following behind it. Some of these tokens will do incredibly well in the future if they have a robust dev team behind them with a great roadmap. Others will be simply rug pulls. They'll get to a certain volume or market cap on SaucerSwap, and they'll pull all the liquidity and the tokens will be worthless. So bit of a PSA there, but of course a great opportunity if you stay vigilant. I will try and cover some of these in the future. Again, this is no endorsement of this particular token. I'm looking into it myself. I have no idea who the dev team are, what they're doing, or what they will be doing in the future. But I will do some more research on tokens like this, projects like this, and upcoming ones in the future. And if I deem any of them reasonable enough, I will cover them on the channel. Something else I wanted to talk about, which is something that has flown under the radar for me personally, but appears to be gaining traction as well, is something called Hbar Space. Many different NFT creators are now jumping on board with this, and you may see it in some of the Discord servers. If you guys are participating in those projects or waiting, you can see here 𝗟𝗚𝗙𝗥𝗥𝗔𝗟𝗦, 𝗥𝗘𝗙𝗦𝗧𝗔𝗠𝗡, for example, and some others are leveraging this in order to check wallets and give roles, etc. in the Discord servers for various different features. Wanted to quickly cover it though. They've got a really interesting one here to do with staking availability. So obviously I talked about 𝗟𝗚𝗙𝗥𝗥𝗡 previously. They've got some eggs. Not going to go too much into depth about that, but in the future you'll be able to check the IDs and numbers of the NFTs, and then whether they're actually stakeable on this particular platform where you can earn rewards, or whether they're stakeable on a platform to earn rewards. So this is a great sort of ecosystem they're building out in order to have many different features. You can see these rewards. They've got social communities, so you can set up profiles. You can see up in the top right, I've got my profile set up. You can see your different NFTs, and then there's kind of this homepage style feed where different people can post, you can follow people, etc. And you can kind of check what's going on in the ecosystem. So this looks like a really cool project at the moment that seems to be taking off, which is really nice for the HBAR community. And hopefully we do see this get utilized more in the future. Speaking of those NFTs as well, HANGRY BABOONS is another one that's going live sometime in the future. I urge you guys to check those out. If you're interested in the NFT space, then it's definitely something that you should be aware of. So the 4,444 unique NFTs with randomly assigned traits. Each one will have unique DNA, all being one of ones. HANGRY BABOONS are integrated with the ecosystem. So people like Creamies, or maybe not Creamies, but I know Pandas, for example, the Pandas collection, maybe even Metavision. Lots of these different creators are all talking to each other. This is a known sort of community and a known creator. So it should be quite an interesting launch. You can get early access or whitelist via the golden token that's available on Zoo's marketplace. It is quite pricey, and I think a lot of people are believing these NFTs will do very well. And of course, it's always worth a shot to try and get some of those at the mint at a discounted rate before they go live on the secondary markets. Now, of course, I know not everyone is following NFTs on Hedera. However, it's always worth trying to keep up to date with some of those flips that you can take. Appreciate this was a long one, but hopefully this gave you a bit of a lowdown, or a rundown, sorry, a massive update on what's happening in the Hedera community at the moment. Tons of different things are continually being developed, and I will continue to provide updates on those and the crypto markets in future videos. If you guys did enjoy this one, leave a like, drop a comment, you've got something to say. I do try and respond to as many of them as I possibly can. And until the next one, I'll catch you then. Cheers.